So what we are going to do is we are going to solve by completing the square. I have all of my steps listed out on the right-hand side, and we're going to be following those. So step 1 says to move everything so that the x's are on the left of the equal sign, constants are on the right. The equal sign is right here. Both of my x's are already on the left-hand side of it, so they're okay. My constants, which is this plus 100, is not. So I'm going to move that by minusing by 100 on both sides so that these cancel. And that gives me 10x squared minus 40x equals negative 100. The second step says to divide everything by the number in front of x squared. And if I look in front of x squared, there is a 10 in front. So I'm going to divide everything by that 10. That's going to give me x squared, because the 10's cancel, minus 4x equals negative 10. Step 3 really has two parts to it. The first part is these first two lines, and those happen in a little thought bubble off to the side. It says figure out the number in front of x, which is this negative 4 right here. Divide this number by 2 and square it. So I'm going to take negative 4, divide it by 2 to get negative 2. And then I'm going to take that negative 2 and I'm going to square it. And negative 2 squared is a positive 4. So I'm going to keep that number in my head, because what I need to do is to add this number to both sides of the equal sign. 4 is not a like term with either of these x's because it doesn't have an x. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x plus 4. This 4 right here just turns into a plus 4 at the end. When I come to the other side, this negative 10, 4 is a like term with negative 10. So I'm going to think to myself, negative 10 plus 4 makes negative 6. Step 4 says to factor the left-hand side using tricks. So it's always going to be x. Nothing else really changes. And the trick is that it's always half of this middle number right here. So negative 4 cut in half or divided by 2, it's going to make negative 2. Step 5 says take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to take the square root of this side and the square root of this side. The reason that we do that is because squares and square roots cancel each other out. So I've got x minus 2 equals 6 does not have a pretty square root, much less negative 6. So I'm just going to write positive or negative square root of negative 6 right now. We'll deal with the negative in just a minute. Step 6 says to get x by itself by adding or subtracting. So if I look over here, it says x minus 2. The opposite of minus 2 is going to be plus 2. And it needs to be on the outside of the radical. It's not allowed to go under the square root. So these cancel, so I get x equals a positive 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 6. Step 7 says to simplify the radical. So that means break it down using factor trees. Pretend that it's a positive, so 6 can be broken down into 2 and 3. They're both prime already. The factor tree is done. So I'm looking for pairs of numbers. I do not have a pair of 2s. I do not have a pair of 3s. Nothing can come out. But if you'll remember, this negative means that the solutions are imaginary. And the way that we write imaginary solutions is to bring an I on the outside of a radical. 6 is going to stay because if I multiply back up my numbers that did not have pairs, it's just plain old 6. So here is my solution. And what's more, I can state that this solution is imaginary because I was taking the square root of a negative number.